Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this SAM Best Practice webinar. Here is the ninth session that we have this month for this month of June. My name is Nicolas Rousseau. I'm a product manager for Flexera ITAM. Yes, I will be leading this, driving this session today, which is covering some news, but also a core topic, which is how to integrate ITAM and FlexNet Manager with a CMDB. So we will have 1 hour together, and this session will be recorded. And as every month, you get the announcement for the sessions published in the community. So I will just show you the link to the community just to make sure that you can subscribe. So if you go to community.flexera.com, you go to the Community Hub, and you will see that there is an event and webinar. And you will see that here, each session is announced, and each content, each recording is uploaded or provided in this section. So you can subscribe to this events and webinar section of the community. And that will help you, staying up to date with what's happening on these SAM best practices webinar sessions. Okay, so I will go through the agenda. There will be, the last session pointers and the answers to questions. We had a session back in May about customizing FlexNet Manager on-premise and cloud, Flexera One ITAM. There will be also some news, short news, and that we will have a session today covering the integration with, integration between ITAM and CMDB. So here, I've been very high level, but you will see that I will go through the concepts and the concepts and the details on these integrations and what is useful, what is needed, and what is not useful, and what are the best practice, at least to my view. So if we talk about the last session, which was the last session, customizing ITAM and FlexNet Manager, somebody tells me that you need to go to the media player. It sounds like there is multiple tabs. So in the media player, you will see the slides I'm sharing now. So we had a full session about how to customize the on-premise and the cloud version of FlexNet Manager of ITAM. And the recording and the PowerPoint are here. So if I click on this link, you will see that some best practices slides are available, and the detailed agenda, as usual, will be displayed, as well as the PowerPoint converted to PDF, and eventually some additional documents here. That's the document that allows to extend the reporting objects for an on-premise implementation. Let's move back to the slides. The recordings here, and there were many questions. I will not answer each of these questions. Actually, the answers to questions were put in the previous presentation that's been uploaded. I've copied again, the various questions and the answers below, but I will not go into details if I want to cover, the core topic for today. But that's interesting to see that there were many questions around the REST APIs, and you will see that we are making progress, a lot of progress on that in the news. There were questions about, documentation, of course, about the link, and that's what I'm doing every time. This session, for instance, there is no download for the PowerPoint, but you will be able to access the PowerPoint and the recording in the next 3 days, so that as soon as they are uploaded in the community. I will move forward and let you read each of the questions. Okay, so there were actually 3 pages of questions and answers I provided, and I'm going to talk about the news. So if we go to to the docs.flexera.com, if we go to the let's say cloud, let's say Manager Suite Cloud, and the feature by release, you will see that as always we have actually new versions being released. Last time was R1.1, and in June we had the R1.2 version released, so that cloud customer can enjoy without any migration. This version, which is actually very close to being released on June 8, which is for June 8, will contain 2 things which are quite tactical, but one is interesting. The March version, which was 2020 R2, included a Windows Server optimization report. And the Windows Server optimization is interesting because it shows you what each ESX server could consume if you take the 90-day peak number of virtual machines. This is a big change in how you can measure the license consumption for Windows Server, which leads to using more standard edition and less data center edition, which are really hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars for large organizations of savings. A new report just got released, which has a flat view on each virtual machine, each host, and the optimal license. So it's a report which is actually useful to allocate in a batch the servers and virtual machines if you want to see your licenses reflect the same consumption as the report. So please take time to check this report and the documentation which is associated. But the idea that you can, from the report, allocate all VMs, all hosts to the optimal license, and then run a business adapter typically to perform the allocation. And you will see for the time of the movement of the VMs, which is every day we update. So it's good to get a full detailed snapshot of the Windows Server optimal license consumption. But keep in mind that given the movement of the VMs, and the fact that a host that was better to cover in the standard edition in a day may be optimal to be covered in the data center edition if let's say 20 VMs move to it on a given day. Keep in mind that given the movement, this allocation will need to be reperformed. But if you want to do a snapshot, this report will be very useful. Another announcement is quite small, but actually it's a report I got many requests on, which is called, the which is called the Application Transparency Report. If I go to FlexNet Manager, if I go to the Transparency Report, so you see that in this report, which I guess will not yet have this drop-down list, you can run the report, and for large organizations, you will see that the raw evidences, the signatures, which have been recognized, and the links to their recognized applications can represent a lot of data. So by default, Java and public and commercial versions are covered, and have the flag to get the detailed raw evidence, registered to be registered. But if you yourself you add more applications, and if you had the flag to more applications, for instance, here I'm opening this Java Public 8 application, and you will see that there is a flag that says monitor detailed inventory or raw evidence. That will appear soon. You will see that this flag, which is import detailed evidence, can be set to any application of your choice. And there are 2 things that have happened actually in this version, two things which are quite important. There is a new drop-down here that allows to filter the product before you run this report, because you will see that there are many, we could have hundreds of thousands of rows. So a drop-down list here that shows the product, and the ability from the application to select multiple applications to add the flag, because here, if you have 4 of them, you will have a new button, if you have admin rights, that will allow you to track detailed, also import detailed raw evidence, which allows them to see these applications in the report, in the application transparency report. So 2 small changes. This is R1.2. But this is a small progress, and this is, the incremental additional changes we perform to ITAM. Then, another news, other part of the news, this SAM Best Practice Hub that I was introducing in the May SAM Best Practice webinar. This is a document which is quite ambitious, I would say. It contains all the pointers to published best practices, which very often are reports. And you see here, in the context of the 3 hubs that are going to be released, the SAM Operations Transparency Hub, the SAM Data Transparency Hub, and the SAM Optimization Hub, you will see that this document keeps being updated. For instance, the May session recording was added to the list of already performed and delivered webinars. There was also, a new screenshot added that gives an idea on what the dashboard will look like. New dashboard for a new mockup for the SAM Operations Transparency. Another mockup has been added also for the SAM Optimization Hub that you see on the bottom. Here we go. So this document, keeps evolving and has, for instance, another addition that has been performed, which is, a new document that gives an example of using the REST API that has been released in March, a document that gives all the details on how to use the API and a PowerShell example to extract all the license consumption for all the licenses. So every time, always the same approach. You have a pointer, you can access the document explains, and you can download the Word document that actually, or here it's just a TXT document that contains a PowerShell that performs the, describe things in the document, in this post. Okay, and 2 more things which are coming, which have been actually the pointer to the Nutanix and the RHEV custom inventory adapters. Actually, the pointer is not yet here, but the documents are here. So these are 2 connectors that allow to read data in the Red Hat, and the virtualization technology, and in the Nutanix, the Prism, and from the data you can collect from each of these clustering solutions. You can actually import into FlexNet Manager or ITAM Cloud. You can import the list of clusters, the list of hosts, and the links between the host, the clusters, the cluster, the host, and the virtual machines. So the document explains this in the Word document. And again, this is a type of update that will be extending this document, which is centralizing all the published best practice. And a quick way of understanding what has happened, is to read the document, the comments. Every time a new addition is being performed, and there is a little update. So you will see soon an update about this Nutanix and RHEV cluster data collection. And finally, a new chargeback report, again, to be soon added to this document, will be added. So just to give you, and explain the fact that this document keeps evolving, and have a look to it, have a look to the comments, which trace what has been added, and you will get more information and useful information. Okay, so let's move to the core topic of today. which is how to integrate ITAM or FlexNet Manager or Flexera One ITAM with its SAM component to a CMDB. And I will give you some context. So I've taken a random screenshot of one of the many articles you can find on ETIL and ITSM. But the idea that ETIL is a set of processes that allow to manage services the best way, that include service design, service transition, service operations, and to perform continual service improvement. And ITSM is one of the disciplines which is described in ETIL, and it's ITSM includes many things. So incident management is the first one that was service desk incident management, where I would say the starting points of ITSM, but ITSM has expanded to managing change. Of course, if you want to understand, if you want to support a user with a computer, you'd better know what has happened with the computer and if any change has been applied. As an extension, configuration management, which is service catalog, service desk. So configuration management is one part that allows to track what is on the device, and configuration management, also IT asset management, is a needed part of ITSM. So in the end, just to start with the very high level picture, ITSM is a discipline that covers multiple activities, and it is defined in the ETIL framework, and the configuration management database, CMDB, is the database, data store, that includes all the configuration items, CIs, famous CIs, which is the source of truth, for the IT estate, which contains definitions and relationships. Typically, you will know which computer is used by which user. You will know the status of the computer and so on. And with that context set, a CMDB needs ITAM and SAM, because the CMDB, is often sort of the management view of the IT estate. So understanding from an automated scanner and from the automated application recognition and normalization, when a computer was seen for the last time, or what are the latest applications that have been installed or removed, this is a necessary information to manage correctly, the CI information and the next step of the ITSM processes, such as supporting the users or managing change. So the CMDB needs ITAM and SAM, and reversely, ITAM and SAM need CMDB, because ITAM, I would say, is more in the automated side of the road, and will take advantage of the managed attributes. So there are a lot of people who manage in ServiceNow or in BMC Atrium or in Universal CMDB for Micro Focus, that manage which are the CIs, what are the status of the CIs, which are the links to understand the application mapping and so on. And this is absolutely critical and needed by ITAM and SAM to understand what is the status of a server. Just imagine if a server has Oracle database installed, which could have $1 million liability consequence. It's better to know the day you decommission the server, that this server is no longer active. Same thing, on the role, who is the user of the device or the server, what is the entity that the server relates to. All these things are extremely useful. We'll see a little bit later, to manage, I would say, mature software asset management and IT asset management. Another interesting fact, and we will see that it's a little bit more complex one, this one. A CMDB gives you the expected state. So typically, if you order a new computer or a new server, you could have an awaiting inventory CI. And this is a little bit, people put in the tool and in the database what they expect to see, and then there will be the loop back, which is, did we see on the real world what was expected? And we will see that, this sort of gap analysis between the expected state and the actual state may be a trap, I would say, for software asset management, which leads to the next slide. So yeah, I will now have a quote, not by Lao Tzu, but by Uncle Sam, which is, be focused, be selfish, be efficient. And that's, here, this is more my 20 years of experience in software asset management as a consultant or as a product manager. There is an interest integrating a CMDB and ITSM with ITAM. It's a very big interest. I list what is interesting. But there is, I would say, a loss in efficiency if you start if you want to build the perfect integration, multi-directional integration, and the very basic questions such as who has the ownership of the contract, of the CI status, of the CI role, of the inventory data. These very basic questions need to be addressed to avoid what I would call a gas factory integration, where all the data gets sort of duplicated in two places. There is a limited value of having as much information in software asset management than what you have in a CMDB, because in the end, you will lose focus. And while the core, the core activity of SAM is to manage, compliancy, risk, optimize licenses, and make all this efficient. If you start, having super sophisticated integrations, you will finish with duplications or data consistency issues, and you will lose your focus on the core of the software asset management, which is let's make sure that we have the right licenses, but don't consume but didn't purchase too much, and have the optimal licensing view of our estate. So we need to minimize the integration points. So CMDB to ITAM typically is CI status, as I was explaining. A server which is decommissioned has an immediate impact on the liability. So having the status reflected in ITAM as ignored, for instance, would be super important to avoid waiting for 1 month to eventually wonder that no recent inventory is coming on the server, which could mean that this server got decommissioned, which could mean that it should not be licensed for Oracle database or SQL Server. So this is the status, very, very primary and foundational information. The CI role also is an important information that a good CMDB has, while it's not exactly the work in ITAM. So, and I know customers who have no CMDB. So what they do in FlexState Manager in FlexRoll ITAM looks like they're managing a CMDB. They will keep updating the servers and computer status. They will manage, the role. But I would say if you have the luxury of having a CMDB, leave this activity to the CMDB people, to the configuration management people, and just use the results of this process and focus on your inventory / license management and contract management focus on these processes, which are the core of ITAM and so on. The last thing that a CMDB can provide to ITAM is the assets and the expected state. And here, I put a question because I've seen so many cases where the CMDB, which is manually fed sometimes, which has a lot of human intervention. I've seen many cases where the CMDB had some inconsistent data, or not relevant data, or not accurate. And in the end, nobody is faulty for that. This is extremely complex when you manage hundreds of thousands of CIs to be sure that everything is perfect. So I would say making the CMDB a feed, sorry, for IT asset management for the assets, and then observing or understanding what are the gaps in ITAM could be, in my view, a risk of impact dilution and loss in focus. On the reverse, ITAM to CMDB, the normalized inventory is, and you will see it's part of the out-of-the-box integration that we have, for instance, with Atrium or with ServiceNow. Normalized inventory is something that a CMDB needs to support correctly a user. You need to understand what is installed. And here, one more question. This is actually more a Technopedia or IT visibility feature than a FlexNet Manager feature. And here, the reason is that the level of granularity you need to manage software asset management is lower, I would say, or higher, than the one you need to do proper configuration management. To understand, the supported version of Oracle database 12c, you need to understand the build number of the database that has been deployed, which is more what Technopedia and IT Visibility do, while the ARL, the FlexNet Manager or ITAM normalization library, which is sort of the child of Technopedia. So Technopedia can normalize any deployed application, and where Technopedia will see 12.1.2 database, Oracle database deployed, and will be able to provide the end of support for this application. The ARL will see Oracle 12c Enterprise Edition, which is an interesting topic because the license cost is way more expensive than Oracle database standard edition. So, yes, ITAM can provide to a CMDB the normalized inventory, but I would say the better candidate, the best candidates for that are more Technopedia and IT. Another interesting thing I will develop a little bit is that ITAM actually is a good fit for incidents. We always think about, CIs, status, synchronizing the data, including eventually contracts, and eventually contracts. But what we don't think so much about, and which I worked on for an interesting project, is that you can generate from ITAM, FlexR1, ITAM, or FlexNet Manager, you can generate incidents based on events. The goal of FlexNet Manager is to monitor your purchase, your inventory, make the reconciliation and calculate license consumption. From these calculations and automations, which keep being refreshed day after day, having the ability to push to the service management tool, which is capturing incidents, the fact that a license has become uncompliant, or the fact that a contract needs to be renewed, or that, for instance, orphan virtual machines which have no host, in the case of non-cloud virtual machines, these VMs have reached a threshold of, let's say, 15%. These are incidents. These are exceptions that you may want to capture as an incident and attach the details of the details. For instance, on a non-compliant license, you could also show which is the list of entities which are consuming the licenses and which are the list of entities which are not compliant, if you think about sub-enterprise compliance. So ITAM is a good fit for I would say, for a CMDB or for ITSM here. So, however, that said, there is a good mutual interest of working together. However, SAM should not do configuration management, and the focus should be compliance and optimization. And I've seen many times, in my previous projects, where SAM managers were spending days trying to clean up the data that they were collecting from the CMDB. And again, having data which needs to be cleaned up is a necessary thing, but I would say this is a configuration management activity, and these people should have focused more, on, for instance, identifying where virtual machines in clusters were installed with exotic options, which were causing hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars of liability. So, and I'm a little bit ironical here, but this is a CMDB joy. There are other joys for software asset management. So I would say let's focus on the things that matter. And if our agenda in SAM is to understand the risk, manage the contract or maintenance renewals, and optimize the license that we use to save a lot of money, let's keep the cleanup activity and do the core of SAM. Okay, and taking action, I've seen so many times where people were focusing a lot on challenging the data, but once something was identified as an issue, taking action and being connected to the real people. I mean, everybody is real, but operations people who may move the virtual machine to a smaller cluster. This is really where SAM brings a value. So. The ServiceNow integration. So actually, I will not go into details. So there is a documentation, which is the inventory connectors, and we have this inventory adapters and connectors documentation, and you will see that there is a quite detailed documentation. And we have an out-of-the-box integration that is set up a pretty simple way. So if I go to I have a local, on-premise version. In the, data system settings, which is a menu you also have in the cloud version, but it's under IT asset system settings. You will see that there is one integration menu, and here you can, in a quite simple way, straightforward way. And again, there is a big story with integrating Technopedia or IT Visibility with ServiceNow to provide normalized data. So here, this is just the ITAM story that I'm explaining here. This is quite straightforward. Behind the scene, of course, you have some XML files and some PowerShell scripts which are querying, the data from ServiceNow, which are eventually, exporting data back to ServiceNow. And by here, I'm quite offline. I'm not connected to a ServiceNow system, but this integration will basically. I will show you the big picture, but just in a term of architecture, the FlexNet Manager Suite cloud or on-prem actually will connect to the MID server and will through the inventory beacon will collect information and will be able to so that there is a dual the bidirectional integration, and the data is going through the MID server, which contains, the data written into XML files, and the data you will see contains, hardware. So this is an extract of the documentation. The data from ITAM, will be exported to ServiceNow, hardware inventory, installed applications, and contracts. But reversely, assets, including information on the status, information on the role, and so on, will be synchronized from ServiceNow to ITAM, to FlexNet Manager, and contracts as well. And that's why, really the key point before jumping and setting up an integration is to understand who has ownership, who has the master data. It could be ServiceNow, it could be ITAM or FlexNet Manager, but we need to decide. The worst case is when a process happens in both places, and you keep having desynchronization of data because this is not a merge. This is there is a merge mechanism which is well explained in the documentation, before creating a contract in ServiceNow, we check if the contract ID exists, for instance. So here we have a full explanation, how the data is mapped and updated. And you will see, we have some keys that we use to match the data in the destination. But of course, there should always be one master and one slave, because you can't do things in two places and expect that the data, for instance, description field of a contract, the comment field will not be merged with a part of the information that comes from ServiceNow and a part of the information that comes from FlexNet Manager or ITAM. Okay, so I'm going back to the slide. Okay, so this is what I can say for the architecture. On the objects, please go to the documentation and go into details. And as often in integrations, a mapping will be needed. So I took the famous or simple case of the status in ServiceNow. In ServiceNow, you have multiple statuses which map to multiple asset statuses. So in ITAM, Flexera ITAM, you have basically an inventory device status, which is ignored or active, very basic, very Boolean. And you have an asset status which has more subtleties, I would say, and which is actually synchronized into the device status. So typically, if you retire an asset, automatically this status will be propagated to the device, which will become ignored, for instance, and will no longer consume licenses. So just to give you an example of the type of data, and actually there are XML files and PowerShell scripts, so you could spend some time on that from a beacon. But the integration will actually contain this mapping, and I just wanted to remind you that that's a thing I've shown 2 or 3 times into the some best practice webinars. But you have a very useful data transformation feature in the business adapter, which can be the full version or the version that's run from a beacon, which works for cloud customers. So you have this data transformation where you can on the fly you can put a mapping between, let's say, source statuses, ServiceNow statuses, and target statuses. So just wanted to remind you of that. If we take the big picture, and I put, this is quite generic in the end, ServiceNow, Micro Focus, or BMC Remedy, service management. So you have, a CMDB in the end, which will be integrated with the ITAM inventory data. So this inventory data, which is raw signatures, file, tags, packages, registry data, will go through the license compliance and application recognition library. And in ITAM, what you see here, you will get, a recognized application, software identification. You will get the full process of managing license reconciliation and optimization. And the idea is that we get from the CMDB the hardware assets, roles, ownership, status, all these managed attributes that will update the asset properties. And reversely, the normalized list of software titles, and I would say better to use Technopedia or IT Visibility, can update the CMDB back for the software catalog. Okay, so big question, Shakespearean question, I would say, asset or not asset. To be honest, as a consultant for years, I've not been a big fan of managing, the inventory data in ITAM with the dual records, which are, inventory device. This is what you see in what has been really inventory by the automated scanner of SCCM or a FlexNet inventory agent. and the asset, which is, I would say, a sort of duplicated record. That is the expected state that typically the CMDB will create into ITAM. And then you have all these things which are, the asset status is, synchronized with the inventory device status. The asset is merged and linked to an inventory device. So this is what I'm describing here, based on, serial number, or you can have a logic for linking the devices to the assets. This can be done automatically through a business importer or manually. You have some recommended links in ITAM. And one thing that not everybody knows is that if you import an asset from, let's say, BMC, Atrium, you will get an invisible linked record, which is called, a compliance computer in ITAM, which will not be visible because it has a status which is awaiting inventory. And this, invisible compliance computer will be surfaced the day when a corresponding inventory device is imported from a real inventory source, being FlexNet Manager in Inventory Agent or SCCM. And I put here, again, a question, because I've seen incredible issues in the past where, duplicated assets on the CMDB side were causing sort of, conflicts when inventory was imported. And in the end, there was quite some manual work to clean up, link inventory device to assets, understand the gaps, so that's so just to finish on the positive, one. So there is this sophisticated, awaiting inventory status. Another thing which is interesting and good is that the asset will show the expected CI, where the inventory device will show the reality, and you have two records that are actually not sharing the same tables and attributes fields. So you will have the ability to navigate between the asset and the inventory device and compare and understand, the gaps and so on. And finally, another very positive thing is that an asset will remain forever in the repository, while an inventory device, which is actually quite new with the new, we have a cleanup feature that has been created. So an inventory device coming from SCCM, and we had an automated deletion actually for a long time. Any device from SCCM is deleted if it has not been inventoried for 3 months, which is reflected in ITAM. And we have now this, 90-day cleanup feature, which is coming with FlexNet Manager and with FlexServer1 ITAM for the inventory manager data. So if you delete the device, you'd better keep, the asset that in the history we show the last inventory date, and we show when the inventory device got removed and unlinked from the asset. Just to show you a little bit on that. So if I go to the assets, you see here that's quite sophisticated. You have a linked inventory that could be empty, actually. So you see some, actually, there is always, in my demo database, there is always a linked inventory. And an asset has a number of attributes and has eventually a linked inventory device, which has more attributes, more details in stored applications coming from the typically from the SCCM or inventory agent from FlexServer. So you can do sophisticated things. You can have sub-assets. You can link an asset to purchase if you want to manage, the purchase cycle and all the data. But I would say, that's where I'm a little bit reluctant sometimes. If we say, let's be efficient and good in SAM, software asset management, maybe let's leave, the pure, contract management, procurement management, and this sort of gap analysis between the expected assets and the inventory device. Let's leave it to the configuration manager people who have a full-time job doing this thing. So this is, where I'm putting a little bit of reserve on that. By nature, CMDB has a lot of data managed manually. There are ways of having reliable and automated source of truth, Active Directory, vCenter, and these are things you can expect to see more reports on very soon. For ITAM, vCenter knows all the virtual machines which are managed. Why don't we show the VMs which have a record coming from vCenter and not inventoried in the all inventory screen? Same for AD. We get actually quite a lot of data from Active Directory on the computers. So having these gap analysis reports, which are founded on the real IT management software, and not on CMDB, where people declare things and could make a mistake eventually. I would say, selfishly, I trust more an automated tool that manages who can access which computer and which computer can be registered on the domain than a CMDB that will have this information plus many others. Okay, so that's my. When I was saying be selfish, I would say managing the full asset life cycle is maybe not what you should start with, at least in terms of maturity. I would say start with managing your inventory, making sure it's exhaustive, importing your purchase, managing your contracts and your licenses, checking the compliance and the optimization. And eventually, you could expand to more, I would say, configuration management related activities later. And the last use case I wanted to develop a little bit, taken from an engagement I had in the past. ITAM, because it manages a lot of data automatically, is aware of things that would require an action. And that's a little bit what I was saying earlier. This is important to understand the issue. This is important to get, more visibility into the issues. And in that context, the SAM operation, the SAM operation hub, which will be released later this year, will bring more KPIs, more data, which allows to understand what's happening. And what is interesting is that these KPIs should not only be contemplated, I would say, they should be the source of an action. And what better tool than a service management tool, incident management tool, is the target for something that has been observed, something that has been calculated automatically, which will change every day. And what better tool than an ITSM tool like ServiceNow or BMC Remedy will be the nice target for this information that has been sort of calculated by the full ITAM engine. So I'm giving some examples. Typically a license is nearly uncompliant, which means that it's consuming between 90% and 100% of the entitlements. I would say this is a severity 3 or severity 4, not so important incident. And the idea that a number of KPIs can be extracted from the ITAM tool, from FlexSend Manager or FlexRun ITAM, such as slightly uncompliant. I'm between 100 and 110% of my entitlements. This is severity 2. For instance, massively uncompliant, or eventually there is a cost for compliance, which is computed by the license consumption by location, for instance. This one could be used as a KPI. Other case, more than 50% of my non-cloud VMs are offline. A maintenance contract is reaching its end. In the end, this data, which is managed, which is computed, which is refreshed every day, which is a big strength of ITAM on the CMDB, where a lot of processes will be more manual. All this will be a nice candidate for opening incidents into ServiceNow or into the other service management tools. So the idea that you need to extract the exception and the incident. On premise, you can create a SQL query that will read, show me any license which is negative by more than 10% or whatever. But another way, which is really, going to change your life, I'm sure, if you're a cloud customer, is that any report as soon as at the end of June, or let's say maybe mid of July, but we're already in a test on this new API. Any report that you have will be available through a REST API. So it looks like a little bit the old, get custom view results API that we had, SOAP API. So it means that, any tool, including ServiceNow or maybe a PowerShell, which reads into the Flexera One ITAM, will be able to run a query that will say, show me the list of license consumption, and eventually, it will store the data into a staging table eventually, where you will calculate, more KPIs based on the raw data that the REST API has returned, and then this data, once extracted, will be stored either in an on-premise table or in a local table, staging table. And that was one of the challenges, if you have the same incident coming twice or three times or for 1 month, this license is negative by, a level 2 uncompliance, you should manage, the unicity of the incident. So the idea that every extract will update or create new incidents that will then be exposed to ServiceNow. And ServiceNow will either create or update incidents if the incidents were already present in the staging table. So this is not rocket science. The big thing is to understand, what are the KPIs and what are the events. Storing the data, so creating the SQL query or the REST API call coming soon will not be such a complex thing. And the idea that you use, ServiceNow insert REST API, and there is an update as well. And in the end, you read a number of fields into the staging table or into the SQL table that you have created on your on-prem instance, .NET, and you keep, sending to ServiceNow either the fact that an incident is still, active. So there will be a change management process, service management process that will happen that normally should fix the issue. Let's say you have more than 15% of your virtual machines which have no host. The incident will be, please manage, your vCenter connections. There is you can check, in the inventory status, which are the vCenters which have an issue. And hopefully the incident will be automatically closed the next time, let's say once a week, you refresh ServiceNow. If this incident called, more than 14% of VMs uncompliant is no longer, relevant, the target incident will be closed. But maybe in 6 weeks, you will reopen another incident with the same purpose because another vCenter, for instance, will have been disconnected due to a firewall which prevents the beacon from accessing the REST API from vCenter. So in the end, this is more a matter of defining the use case, a matter of writing limited script to extract, store the data, and use the out-of-the-box REST APIs of ServiceNow to manage these incidents. Okay, so that's it for today. For one time, I was not longer than the expected time. Thanks for being faithful to these monthly best practice webinars. You will get very soon the updated recording and PowerPoint. Don't hesitate to contact me if you have questions, and talk to you next month. Thank you.